Hey, welcome to number 15 of the podcast, the Offline Podcast with John Jackson. Hey, we want you to show us some love by hitting that like button. We also want you to subscribe to our podcast and join our team. We welcome comments and questions, so visit theofflinepodcast.com. Today is a great day in Cincinnati. I see the sun out a little bit, and it's all about guests. And today's guest is a very special guy. We banged heads a few times, especially in practice. He was a walk-on at Auburn, and he was drafted in 1985 in the 5th round. He was the 113th pick. He played for the Rams, the Steelers, Carolina, San Francisco, Carolina, and he spent 15 years in the National Football League. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first team. And check this out. He was the NFL and the NFC Defensive Player of the Year. That's pretty impressive. 2-time sack leader in 94 and 96. And he made a special club, the 100 Sack Club. He had 160 sacks during his career. He made the 90s All-Decade team, and he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2016. He was also a coach for 7 years, 5 years with Green Bay, 2 years with the Jets, and he has a ring as a coach with the Green Bay Packers. So I want to welcome to the podcast a good friend of mine's, Kevin Greene. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Hey, what's happening, John? How we doing, man?
We're doing good, dude. Hey, every day's a blessing. I'm just living the dream right now. Living the dream, as we always
right
say.
Side of the dirt, brother. You're right. Exactly.
That's right. So, Kevin, let me understand this. You were a walk-on at Auburn. So I know you traveled a lot because you were an Army brat. So tell me what made you walk on to Auburn? What made that so special?
That's a good question. My mom and dad were originally from a town just outside of Anniston, Alabama. And the town's name was Chockalaka, Alabama. I know, in the woods, right in the sticks. So my dad joined ROTC and commissioned a second lieutenant right out of Jacksonville State University, and he went traveling around the world. And, of course, got married and had 4 kids. And my dad was always an Auburn fan. My mom was always an Auburn fan. So no matter where we were living, we always followed Auburn football. We were living in Germany for 6 years, but we would tune in on the Armed Forces Radio Network to listen to Auburn football games. And that's back in the day when they didn't really, have a lot of TV and those military bases back in Germany in the 70s and so forth. But so Keith and I, my older brother, and I just naturally gravitated toward Auburn and Pat Sullivan, the Heisman Trophy winner, John, and Terry Beasley, just a lot of old Auburn good players back in the 70s, and Shug Jordan and everything. And so when it came time for us to go to college, there's no question where we were going to go. It was going to be Auburn. So
right. So you were not highly recruited, huh?
No, I went to high school in Granite City, Illinois, right across the river from St. Louis. I'm not sure Auburn had their scouts all the way up in Illinois and Missouri, and pulling players down at Auburn at that time. So I think Auburn, I'm not sure how far their recruiting was, but I don't think it was all the way up in Illinois anyway. I got, a couple of like partial scholarship offers and this and that, but nothing from a big D1 school or anything.
So what made you so impressive as far as your work ethic? Because I when I did the background stuff, I listened to your coach, and he was saying that you were out there like 5 o'clock in the morning. You were like the first one on the field and the last one off the field. I mean, is that from your military background?
That I think you could probably say that, John. I mean, having a dad who was a freaking Vietnam veteran, airborne ranger, 101st Airborne Division, infantry, and everything. Having a guy like that as a dad, he's squared away, he's regimented, he's disciplined, he's hard worker, hard charger. And, just through, the socialization process, being raised in that kind of family environment, my brother and I became the same thing. And so did my two sisters. I mean, you're going to be a lot like your dad, and your mom. And, and my dad and mom were married and stayed married. I was blessed to have a mom and dad at home, you know what I mean? And
Right.
remained married for my entire lifetime and their entire lifetime. And so it was really good, and just, I wanted to be a lot like my dad, just hammer down and driving hard toward a goal.
Mm-hmm. So when did you develop your passion for football? Was that early in life, or was that when you got to Auburn?
Oh, no. I mean, I was always, playing football on all the military bases that I lived on. We played for the local Athletic Youth Association, or the AYA. And no, I mean, just playing with those other athletes, in the military, there's no black or white, you know what I mean? And right. No Mexican, everything's like purple, you know what I mean? So you're getting along.
I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you get along with everybody.
Along with everybody.
There's no color. There's really no color. Everybody's, Army Green, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, man, I just looked up to some of these skilled athletes, man, some of these brothers, man, that were just phenomenal, just athletic. You got all types of walks of life, in the Army, and some of these cats were just, I wanted to emulate some of the things they were doing, because they were just so, man, smooth, man, mm-hmm. It was just, and so I just grew up surrounded by just tremendous amounts of athleticism. You follow what I'm saying? And
I'm following, yeah.
I'm like, I want to make an all-star team. They're all making all-star teams. I want to make an all-star team too,
Right.
And so I just became driven, became driven to be, to be good at it.
Right. What would you say? What was the biggest value that you learned from those guys?
No, I mean, just, they just, the competition of it, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never wanted to be another body in the pile, John. I always mm-hmm. wanted to stand out from the pile, and I wanted my play to be indicative of that. Is that, I'm just not going to be a body in the pile. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be the best. I was driven to be better. Mm-hmm. And like Dom Capers, you remember Dom Capers at Pittsburgh, one of his favorite sayings, in which I now say it a lot when I talk to people, is, right. You, in order to be great, you got to be willing to do the little things that most people just won't do. Dom mm-hmm. would say that a lot, and I was willing to go to that place. I was willing to do the little things that most people just would not do. They wouldn't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go and work out. They like to sleep in and leisurely come in and get the workout or what. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to achieve greatness if I went down that path. It wasn't going to happen to me that way.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so what was that aha moment at Auburn when you got, you're a walk-on and you get a scholarship from Auburn? What was that?
I never got a scholarship.
No, you didn't.
No.
You were a walk-on the entire time you were at Auburn?
Pretty much, yeah.
They give you any financial aid, or?
No, I mean, I was a walk-on. I mean, any financial aid at all would have been illegal, No, man. Pat Dye said he wasn't going to waste a scholarship on a guy that only had 2 years of eligibility left. I did, I walked on a little bit later in college. I walked mm-hmm. on like my final 2 years of school. And, but, Pat Dye, he said, look, I'm not going to give a scholarship to you. You're welcome to, to stay here and hopefully, play well enough to get on the field and get some playing time, but I ain't going to give you a scholarship. But that's okay. I mean, I didn't walk on for a scholarship. I walked on.
I get that.
I wanted to prove to myself that I could, compete, in D1 ball. So,
so how important was the ROTC in your college career?
How important was what now?
ROTC.
ROTC. Well, that was big. It was just a big part of, my life, my brother's life. Just want to emulate our father. Like I mentioned, my dad was a full colonel, and he was just a total professional and just a real true officer, a true soldier. And we both wanted to be like him. And in a lot of ways, we became our dad. And my brother was a Black Hawk helicopter driver in the first Gulf War. He retired a lieutenant colonel. And I'm sure you've done some research on me. I was a reserve guy for like 16 years. And ended up being a captain. I went to paratrooper school.
You spent a little time in Kentucky, huh?
I spent a lot of time in Kentucky. Well, at that time, it was Fort Knox, Kentucky, because that was home of armor. I was an armor officer, tanks.
Right.
But they had moved that school now to, I think, Fort Benning, Georgia. I don't think the armor school is there anymore at Knox. But at the time, it was, and I spent a lot of time there, correct.
Yeah. So tell me about your so you go to the NFL, you're drafted by the Rams, and what was that like? Because at that time, the Rams were in Anaheim. They were not in LA. How was that? How was that time?
No, I mean, a fifth-round draft choice, you're 50-50. You're on the bubble. You're on the bubble, man. I mean,
you got to hustle, brother. You got to hustle,
you're
right?
on the bubble. But being on the bubble wasn't really anything new to me. Yeah, I was just happy to be there. I was happy to have an LA Ram helmet on, And I tell you this, Pat Dye at Auburn and the program that we had there down on the plains in Auburn, Alabama, prepared me for the next level because I was clearly moving quicker and faster and hitting people harder. When I showed up rookie camp and training camp, matter of fact, I was tackling the quarterback for the first 3 or 4 days. And in the NFL,
you don't tackle the quarterback. You know that.
Well, see, I didn't know that because at Auburn, we tackled the quarterback. I mean, the quarterback was live. In college, the quarterback is live. This is the early 80s now. So I go to the Rams, and I start tackling the quarterback. Well, it took me 3 days. 3 days before I finally could break myself of the habit not to hit the quarterback. Coach John Robinson, he was like, Greene, we're going to send your country ass back to Alabama the next time you touch a quarterback. Do you understand? You will be cut. And that was really how I kind of figured it out. Don't be freaking touching the guys in the red jersey. But,
Kevin, it took you 3 days, huh, brother?
At least 3 days.
To figure that.
At least 3. And that was after the first 2 days and me hitting some quarterbacks and everybody's jumping my ass. The offensive coordinator, the head coach, the defensive coordinator, the offensive line coach. Greene, you idiot. Why can't you understand? This is not college. You don't touch the red jerseys. Okay, I got it, coach. 2 plays later, I'd be beating a big tackle and come off, boom. And again, Greene, are you stupid or something? Oh, I heard it all.
You heard it all.
Oh, my gosh.
So I remember playing you on a Monday night, playing against you, and I'll never forget. Eric Greene caught a touchdown, and Eric Greene lined up next to me, and I'm blocking you, and you go, and this is the words that came out of your mouth. There is no way in hell he got to the end zone. And I was like, you just don't know how fast Eric Greene was. Especially that was like his his first or second year in the league. Dude, the guy was fast. I mean,
he
fast
was impressive.
Anything.
He was impressive now.
Oh, my goodness.
For being as big as he was, yes.
And fast?
Yeah.
Oh, but he was not afraid to block, because I remember one time I saw him pick up LT and just literally body slamming.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting going, oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Like,
he was a good player. He was underrated. I think he was underrated. And,
but I remember that on Monday night, because you turn back and you like, he got to the end zone that quick? And you should have seen your face. It was just like deer in the headlights, like, what? So let's go forward now. You come to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why did you go to the Steelers when I guess you were a free agent? You came to Pittsburgh?
That was the first year of free agency, John, was 93.
Mm-hmm.
93 was the first year that we all got a chance to really experience the concept of applying your trade to multiple teams, and then you can choose where you want to go and play.
Right.
Whereas before 93,
you were pretty locked in.
When you got drafted or when you signed a free agent contract with somebody, they essentially owned your rights in perpetuity. So when you played your contract out, say you had a 4-year contract, you played that out, you couldn't go anywhere else. You had to essentially –
Right. We were talking about Plan B.
You couldn't go anywhere.
Locked you down. Yeah, they locked you down.
Bro, this is before Plan B. I mean, this is when they owned you, John. My first year was 85. They owned you for life. So you could play 3 or 4 years on your first contract, and now you have to negotiate your next contract with that team you're playing for. Right. So if you think about it like that, they've really got you over the barrel, because they can really pay you whatever it is they really want to pay you, because you can't play anywhere else.
Right.
So
Kevin, my question is, what made you choose Pittsburgh over all the different teams that you had choice from? And I'm pretty sure you had some choices.
Well, I had that first year that in free agency was 93. That was my 9th season. So my first 8 years I played for the Rams. And in some of my most productive years, I was a 3-4 outside linebacker, cast in the same mold as Lawrence Taylor, Ricky Jackson, and Derek Thomas. I was cast in that mold. And there was a coaching change in 91 and 92 with the Rams, and they moved me to outside backer in a 4-3, which it's not the same position. I could cover with I cover and no problem,
But you wanted to rush the passer. You wanted to go to get the quarterback. That was a real big deal, right?
The reality of it, John, is that I wasn't going to be an impact player playing an outside linebacker in a 4-3. I was going to be an impact player as an outside linebacker in a 3-4. Two totally different positions. And didn't we talk about how I didn't want to be a body in the pile? A 4-3 outside backer made me a body in the pile. But a 3-4 OLB gave me a chance to separate myself from the pile and be impactful. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be impactful. It wasn't just, rushing the passer, although I enjoyed rushing. But the outside linebacker in a 3-4, I'm sure has 3 jobs. And you really got to do all 3 jobs equally as well. You got to rush the passer like a big defensive end. That's the first job. Second, you can't be soft against the run. You got to play the run at the point of attack like a bitch. You got to dominate tight ends.
Right.
And number 3, you got to be able to cover like a big, strong safety. You got backside, the backfield responsibility. You got curl flat. You got fire zone concepts. You got quarter concepts, cover 2 concepts. You got a large load of coverage responsibility. You got to do all 3 of them equally as well. You just can't do one and really suck at the other. It just doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work at all.
So,
and you did all 3 well, though. You did all 3 well. I'll tell you that. You did all 3 well.
Well, everybody likes to look at 160 sacks, John, and go, he was a sack master. Well, if they looked at my career, they'll see that, you know what? I played the run, and and I covered equally as well as I rushed the passer. I did it just as good. And and I knew I could be an impactful player by being in a 3-4. Now, in 93, which would have been what year in the league for you with Pittsburgh? What in 93?
93, that was year 6 for me.
Year 6.
Year 6.
Y'all had an outside linebacker named Gerald Williams.
Yeah.
He went to San Diego on a free agent contract. You remember that?
I remember that.
So you lost your starting left outside linebacker opposite of Greg Lloyd. So I heard that y'all were looking for a left OLB in a 3-4. That's how it happened. I went there. Coach Cowher picked me up, brought me in, Three Rivers. Dom shows me on the board exactly the position that I'm going to be playing. It's the exact same position that I played with the Rams before they made the coaching change and my position change. And I knew I was going to be an impactful player playing this position. That's why I signed with Pittsburgh.
Right. So when you came in, I mean, I know your expectations were high because you always played at a high level, but what was your expectation about Pittsburgh, about their defense?
I don't know if I had an expectation about the defense at Pittsburgh. I think I knew that Pittsburgh was a hard-working blue collar town, and their defense was legendary back in the day, winning 4 Super Bowls, and that the Steeler Nation wanted to see big-time defensive hits. They remember the Jack Hams and the Jack Lamberts, and Andy Russells, and all these guys, Mean Joe Greene. They want to see killer defense. And I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to be a part of that history of being one of the Steeler linebackers. And so I don't know if it was so much of an expectation other than I wanted to be a part of what the Jack Lamberts and the Jack Hams of the world established there in the 70s. I wanted to be a part of that rich history.
Right. So tell me about when you first get to training camp and we're at St. Vincent's and we're in those crappy ass dorms. What'd you think about those dorms?
No AC, sweating all hours of the night, no air conditioning. You got to crack your windows. You ain't got no breeze. You got a fan. You got your little fan going on. But you know what? It wasn't really a big deal for me, John, because I had a lot of military training underneath my belt by that time.
Right.
And I've slept underneath tanks. I've slept out in the woods. We've had a lot of I was never deployed, but we did a lot of war games and stuff out in the field, as part of your training. So I could really sleep anywhere, so that dorm really, it didn't even faze me,
Right. I mean, a lot of people don't know you're a big Jeopardy fan. And I remember going to meetings and I would stop by your room and you go, oh, just hold up, John. I got to finish watching Jeopardy. I used to love to go by your room because I knew what you were watching. And I love Jeopardy as well because like we had talked, it's all about, educating yourself. And they say the craziest things. And
exactly.
Like, never thought about that, never thought about that question. Yeah. So Alex Trebek died. So that is still, to me, one of the greatest shows on TV. And he dies, and he still has he before he died, he did 35 episodes. And they're going to air those shows. Dude, he's a trooper, man. He's a trooper. I mean, that show is still going to be in syndication. I mean, I'm pretty sure long after we're done.
And I'm not sure who they're going to get to fill those shoes of Alex.
How do you replace a legend like that?
How do you? It's almost like a no-win situation. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
That's a tough assignment.
But
yeah,
but tell me the passion you had about that show, because I would see you just light up when I go by that room and you're sitting there and you're getting yourself ready to go to the meeting, but you're like glued to that TV on Jeopardy.
No, I just enjoyed, basically, just seeing if I knew some of the abstract kind of crap that was going down in the show. And it is definitely some mental calisthenics,
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that I wasn't really smart. So it kind of reminded me, you know what? I didn't pay attention in school all those years.
But that's a good education, though, from looking at Jeopardy. So let's talk about you being defensive player of the year for the NFL and the NFC. I mean, and that was later in your career. That was in '96. Was that '96?
Yeah. You know what? I was on a mission, and let me tell you why in '96 is because, we went to the Super Bowl. Remember the '95 season? We lost against Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And I had every intention about coming back in '96 and being a Steeler again. But unfortunately, the powers that be at Pittsburgh had a different plan. They really wanted Jason Gilden. Remember Jason Gilden from Colorado?
Or Jason, right?
Yeah, they really wanted him to start getting playing time. They wanted to start moving him in as a starter and so forth. And so I'm talking to Bill Cowher on the phone, after the Super Bowl and for a couple of weeks, and he's really just wanting me to mentor Jason Gilden and show him, where his eyes need to be and teach him what I know, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, I ain't got a problem with that. Are you going to at least let me compete for a starting position?
Right.
And his answer was, I want you to be a mentor for Jason Gilden.
Right.
And so that told me right there that they had no intentions of even letting me compete for a starting job. And I said, okay, Coach Cowher, I appreciate it. I think I'm going to see if there's a team out there that wants me. And he said, well, before you sign with anybody, give me a call. And I told him I would, but I didn't. Of course, I went right to Carolina because Dom Capers was calling me. He was the head coach. Mm-hmm. And he goes, KG, I want you to come in, play your old position, and help teach the zone pressure package to your brothers on the defense because we're putting it in. And I said, right. I am there. So I signed with Carolina, led the NFL in sacks, and first team All-Pro and Pro Bowl starter and all that stuff. And it was just my way of saying, you know what, I wasn't ready to ride the pine. And I knew Jason Gilden couldn't do some of the things that I could do. I knew Jason Gilden's skill set. He was a good player, but I just didn't think he could do the things that I could do.
Right, because you had the experience, though. You had the experience over that. You had the experience over him, so you knew a little. You knew a little more than Jason did. So you go to 49ers. What made you go to the 49ers and then go back to Carolina?
Well, make a long story short, the year in '96, I wasn't being paid in the top 20 of linebackers. Right. I was like 25th, and I got in a big squabble with management at Carolina. I'm not going to name any names, but they basically said, we appreciate everything you did for us in '96, and we're going to treat you right. We're going to take care of you this next year in '97. We're going to treat you right. Okay. Well, all they ended up wanting to offer me was some incentive money that I was going to achieve anyway, and it still didn't get me in the top 20 of linebackers in the NFL. And what bothered me about that was if they would have just got me to 19, just make me the 19th best paid, they didn't even want to do that. But yet I led the NFL in sacks. I was first team All-Pro. I was clearly the best at my position. I wasn't even in the top 20 salaries.
Wow.
I was getting a little bit older, but I still knew I could be competitive and compete.
Right.
I could still set the pace. But I think it was they were just kind of discriminating against me age, because I was getting 34-ish, I got 11, and so forth.
Right. And that's the crazy thing. That's a young man, but in football, you're kind of like a dinosaur. Because I remember when I went to San Diego, and I was the highest paid offensive lineman for like 2 years. And I didn't want that title because I knew it was like top of the mountaintop. Mm-hmm. There's no place for me to go except down. And then I come to Cincinnati, and I'll never forget when I'm introducing myself in the locker room, and one of the young guys came up to me and goes, I used to play you on the video games. I was like, okay, get away from me. Get away from me. So I knew that I was old. I knew I was old. And I'm like, dude, I know I'm old, but I could still play. And
because you're a smart player. You're a smart player. I mean, your body may not be in your prime, John. I mean, when you were 13 or 14 years in the league, but your mind was sharper than ever, and you knew how to compete. You knew how to play with good technique and fundamental, and so it's no wonder that you played that many years, because your body, it starts to degrade after 6-7 years.
So I got one bone to pick with you, and that bone is you won the sack. You led the NFL in sacks, and I never forget you told me, "Hey, make sure that Leslie O'Neal doesn't get a sack today." And I promised you that he wouldn't get a sack today. And you had something for me, and you had a bottle of Dom P. But then I was the last person on the offensive line to get my bottle, and I'm looking at everybody get their bottles, and I'm like, wait a minute. I was the only guy to block. That guy all day. Nobody else blocked it. I was the only guy to block Leslie O'Neal that day. It was in San Diego, and I remember that. And I was like,
"Did you get your bottle?"
You gave me a bottle, but you gave it to everybody else.
What?
But if you would have said, Kevin, if you would have said this, if you would have said, you know what, I'm gonna do a team deal. It came to me first, and I'd have been okay with it because I'm all about team. But I kind of got hurt because I was like, dude, this is my boy, and I'll make sure I'm taking care of him today. And you should have saw Leslie O'Neal when he was like, why are you playing so hard? I said, I got to stop you today because if you don't get a sack, Kevin Greene wins the sack league. And he was like, you got to be kidding me. I was playing that. He's playing that game like a playoff game. So I amp my status up too to play like a playoff game. He's like, John, why are you holding me like this? Dude, I was gripping him. I'm gripping him, and I'm like holding him. He's like, John, ease up. He's like, you guys are in the playoffs. I said, I know. But, Kevin wants to win he wants to win the sack title. So
no, I remember. I remember giving all you guys, a bottle of Dom, and that's just, I hate that you're as sensitive as you are. Knowing what I know now, maybe I should have given you your bottle first, so you wouldn't got your panties in an uproar. And so,
I love you too, brother. I love you too, bro.
But oh, Lord,
I love you too, brother. I love you too.
But the times we had in the locker room, what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. We had a lot of fun.
They do.
We had a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
So tell me about this wrestling deal that I remember when you went to wrestle. So what was that like? I mean, I remember seeing you on TV, and I'm like, he's doing what? Because I know the contract is very specific as far as what you can and cannot do, and I know wrestling had to be up in there.
No,
as far as you getting hurt.
No,
huh?
Nah, there wasn't in there. There wasn't anything in my contract that said, KG, you can't wrestle, you can't snow ski, you can't ride a motorcycle, you can't cross a crosswalk. because if I fear you're going to get hurt. There was nothing in it.
You sure, Kevin? Because I remember when I'll take you back. I remember my first year starting. I had to take some classes to get my degree, and I'll never forget. I told Tom Donovan that I had to do a rock climbing class for 1 credit, and he looks at me like, "No, you can't do that. We don't want you to get hurt." I'm like, "It's only 1 class." I said, "It's a 1-day class for 1 credit." And that's why I took it. He was like, "Now we can get you out of it." And I was like, "No, I'm doing the class. I'm doing the class." But I just want to know your experience with wrestling, because it looked fun. It looked a lot of fun.
Well, they gave me an opportunity to come off the top rope, and then take down the Big Show. And the Big Show, he's 7'4", about 425 pounds. And they gave me an opportunity to take him down. And I'm like, yeah, I'll come off the top rope on that big dude and I'll drop him. And that's exactly what had happened. And plus, they paid me well. I mean, the WCW hung a golden carrot, in front of my nose and said, "Would you do a pay-per-view for this amount of money?" And I said, "Yes, I will." And so, make a long story short, I did 4 pay-per-views, because the first one I did set a new standard in pay-per-views. I don't know if it was me being involved or what, but it broke a record, some kind of financial money and record. And they said, "We want you back for another one." I did that one, and another windfall. And then I did a third one, and I got more money. And then I did a 4th one, and then we kind of they didn't call me back, and I didn't call them back, and we just kind of like, you know what? It was a good ride for the WCW and Kevin Greene, because they paid me very, very well. So.
But I got to tell you something. I enjoyed when you did that. I was like, look at him. Look at him. He is kicking some ass. He is kicking some ass.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I could get Nature Boy in a spinning toe hold, and like I said, I could knock the crap out of Macho Man Randy Savage or whoever. I could have fun with it. It was fun. So
I was amazed. I saw Macho Randy Savage walk through the airport, and I could not believe how small he was. I was amazed. I mean,
he was a good dude.
The airport. Yeah, he was a good dude.
Yeah,
but I'll never forget. It was my early part of my career, and I saw Andre the Giant. Now imagine this: we were in the old airport in Pittsburgh's old airport, and I'm looking down, and I see this door open, and it's all dark. It's all dark, and I'm like, "What in the world?" And all of a sudden, this thing, I call it a thing, but it was a person. He turned sideways. It was Andre the Giant. And I could not believe how big this guy was. This dude was huge.
He was a monster. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I've never seen him, but the Big Show was a big dude, too. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Those guys were huge. And I got to meet a couple other guys. I'm trying to think, down in Orlando, and they were nice guys.
Yeah,
they were nice guys. Once you told them who you were, they were like, "Oh, John, nice to meet you."
Yeah.
I met Hulk Hogan down at Disney, and never forget, he was such a great guy.
Yeah, good dude.
Yeah, good dude. So you go into coaching. So what was the thing about you going into coaching? I mean, was it you still wanted to participate in football, or you just had that burning desire to coach?
When you play like we did, and you play as long as you do, you're an adrenaline junkie, and you feel that excitement, when you're in the middle of the storm, when you're in the middle of the rage, and I missed that. And so coaching gave me an opportunity to not necessarily get into the fire, but kind of stand around the fire and get warmed by it a little bit. You know what I mean? That makes sense.
Right.
And that's what happened. Dom Capers got to defensive coordinator job in Green Bay in 2009, and he was putting together his staff. And I called him out of the blue, and at the recommendation from my wife Tara, you ought to call Dom. He just got that job. Mm-hmm. And Dom said, "Well, Kevin, I can probably get you in front of Mike McCarthy to interview for a job. I can't promise anything, but why don't you just come in and interview for a job?" And I said, I'd love an opportunity to do that. And so the bottom line there is I went in to Mike McCarthy's office, and he didn't ask me a thing about football. It's like, "Okay, how are you doing? How's your family? Okay, thank you for dropping by and seeing us." I'm like, 5 minutes. And I didn't know if I had a chance or not to get the job, but
right.
Then I got the phone call, and they offered me the job, and we won a Super Bowl the second year there, in 2010. Aaron Rodgers, we went and won a Super Bowl. So I spent 5 years there, and it was really good. I had some good kids that played for me. Of course, everybody knows Clay Matthews and everything, but I really had some fine kids that listened to me, and implemented the technique and fundamental that I was throwing down, that I was
right.
teaching, and they all got better. Every one of them got better. And so I enjoyed, feeling that intensity again, that flame.
Mm-hmm.
So
what was the one thing you took from Dick LeBeau and you implemented it in your coaching style?
Well, one thing that I took from Coach Dick LeBeau,
because Coach was smooth. Coach was pretty smooth.
No, I love Coach LeBeau too. I mean, he was in Pittsburgh. He was the DB coach, and Dom Capers was the coordinator, and Marvin Lewis was my position coach, and but I think Dick LeBeau was so genuine. He was. I mean, you got. Probably the majority of the coaches in the NFL talk to you in coach speak. You don't know whether you believe their stupid ass or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, they tell you one thing and they talk about you behind your back. I know. But Dick LeBeau was just so freaking genuine. I mean, he wore his heart on the sleeve, and he established relationships with people, I mean, through just loving people. And so, I think if there was one thing I learned from him when I became a coach was, I'm gonna really show that I love all my kids that I'm coaching, and that I'm willing to do anything I can to be the best I can be, so they can be the best that they can be. Just trust me that I'm doing everything I can to have you guys as prepared as you possibly can be to make the best plays you can make.
Right.
And I love you guys. You guys are my guys, and I'll do anything I can for you. I care for you. And so they all, we just became, brothers then. It wasn't necessarily coach to player. I was a ex-player showing them tricks of the trade, and they picked up on it, and then they played good. But just to be genuine, I think, is something that I learned from Coach LeBeau. Just be genuine. Don't be phony. Don't be false, plastic and shit. You know what I'm talking about.
Right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It happens a lot.
That's how it was to me. And it does happen a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Hey, Kevin, hold on 1 second. I got to do an advertisement for a good friend of mine. Hey, I want to tell you about a great place to buy a great cigar. It's called Bell's House of Tobacco. I've known John for quite a while. And you can go get a fine quality cigar. I've had one today. It was a AJ Upman. Great cigar, smooth flavor, but good quality as far as the cigar, but great price point. So if you want a good cigar, go to Bell's House Tobacco, talk to John Bell, and I'm pretty sure he'll give you a great cigar. On the screen, you'll see all his information. So stop by Bell's and have a great cigar. Yeah. So Kevin, let's go. Huh?
Hey John, hey man, I'm gonna break contact with you, man, because my son is over here and he's ready to work out. And
okay,
he's home from college right now, and
no, I get you.
And I got to get him in the weight room, get that weight on his back, do some squats, and this is his time right now. And
okay, I don't want to take away from his time, but hey, answer this one question. I got one final question for you. What did it mean for you to go into the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. It's the ultimate all-star team. You can't get any better than the Hall of Fame. I thought, I did some special things as an outside linebacker for 15 years, and it's kind of neat that I was finally really recognized for what I did. People, John, they want to look at Lawrence Taylor as being, the best at this position. And it's hard to argue that. But I would encourage people to look at the years that I played and the statistical production numbers that I did and compare it with the great Lawrence Taylor. And then, if more years and more production means maybe he did a little bit better, I don't know. It is what it is, but nobody's going to ever say Kevin Greene's on the same level as Lawrence Taylor. No one's ever going to say that. But I can tell you, in my heart, in my mind, I played the position better. I played it longer, and I was more productive at it. And my numbers speak for themselves. It's not something I got to.
Right. And Kevin, you're absolutely right. But I think you were a better person off the field and on the field. The one thing you taught me was definitely you got to come every day to work. And that's what I loved about you. Every day you came and you worked. You put in a good day's work, and it showed on the field. So go work out with your son. But dude, I really appreciate you. Yeah. I really appreciate you.
Enjoy it, bro.
This. Okay.
You okay,
thanks.
Bro? See you, man.
Hey, make sure that you go to the podcast and understand this. I mean, I've got Kevin. Kevin did a great for me today, and I really appreciate him doing this. But make sure that you subscribe and join our team and hit that like button, and make sure that, we welcome comments and questions. So go to the offlinepodcast.com. It's another great day on this podcast, and I can't believe we've actually done episode 15. But I think there's a lot more great podcasts to come. And I appreciate my guest, Kevin Greene, giving me his time. But make sure we do one thing for each other. We take care of each other, and we treat each other like human beings. So I will see you next time on the Offline Podcast. Thank you.